Hey guys, back with another video. This time, my top 5 favorite video game series. Yeah, a pretty big video, a pretty big topic. And this is a response to Sporadic Spacebar, one of my favorite channels on YouTube. And definitely check him out. Check his videos out. Some really great videos. He has this one series that he does called the Chopping Block, where he's trying to slim down his collection. So he kind of shows you all the games that he's thinking of getting rid of, and kind of asks for people's opinions on what games should kind of maybe be cut from the collection, and he asks people for some good reasons why they should maybe stay in the collection. I think it's a really cool video and a cool idea to kind of slim down your collection and to get people involved. I really like that series of videos that he's doing. But basically he did a video talking about his top 5 favorite series in gaming. And it's a video that I'm surprised I haven't done something like this. Also, like, I haven't really done like a top 10 favorite games of all time type video, which I am planning on doing that sometime. I don't know if it's going to be this year, probably next year, but I decided to do this video as a response to Sporadic Spacebar. So yeah, I'm going to talk about my top 5 series from 5 to 1, and then some honorable mentions towards the end. So yeah, let's just get right into things. At number 5 is a series that made Sporadic Spacebar's list, and that is the Diablo series. Now, the original Diablo is one of those games that's very nostalgic to me. Actually, Diablo 2 as well, but Diablo 1 I played way back in the day. I don't think it was at release, but like soon after. I remember my dad got like a burnt copy of the game from work, from somebody he knew at work, and he brought it home, and then that game was very difficult. It was a very difficult dungeon crawler, loot-driven game, and I was always intrigued by it. I never got very far. In fact, I've never actually beaten the original Diablo, sad to say, but I made it to, like, I think Hell was like the furthest I got back then, and it's still actually a very hard game today. But one of the things with Diablo, like, I was addicted to the online portion of it. Like, I thought the online portion of it was really cool because I had dial-up back in the day, but that was the first time I ever played online, any type of game online, and it just blew my mind that I could play that game with random people across the world. So I didn't get really like super into the game because I was just really bad at it, and it was a very difficult game. My obsession with the series didn't start until Diablo 2, which I got way later. I got it around the time the expansion came out, and that game was like one of my first big video game addictions. I think Pokemon Blue was probably the first, but Diablo 2, I spent so many hours playing that game. It's still an amazing game too, and actually Blizzard is planning on doing like a remaster of that game, apparently, which is good. I'm gonna be jumping on that definitely, like day one. But Diablo, me and my brother would play that constantly. It had the online as well that I was just completely enamored with. But the Diablo series to me is one of the reasons why I love the series so much, is just how like dark it is. Like the first 2 games especially. The Diablo 3, actually, one of my disappointments with that game was how it just didn't have like the dark kind of tone to it that the first 2 games. Like the first 2 games had like kind of a horror vibe to them, especially the first game. Like the Butcher, like he actually scared me when I was a kid. Like just his room with all like the corpses like all thrown about. Like it was really brutal stuff. I shouldn't have been playing that game. I was like 11. Well, no, that game it was probably like 7 or 8 when I first played the original Diablo, which I was way too young to be playing that. But Diablo 2, the loot, like one of the reasons why I love this series, it's just so addictive with its loot. The idea of like set items to me was like amazing back in the day. Like I was addicted to get all these sets of items that would give you like powerful bonuses. There was like skill trees for each type of character in Diablo 2, like branching skill trees. There's so many different builds you could have with each character or each character class. And I remember Diablo 2, the manual for that game. I would read that manual from the front page to back constantly. Like this is how addicted to that game I was. Like I was just living like it's just everything. Like every time I was thinking of a game, I was thinking of Diablo 2. It was crazy. So of course the hype for Diablo 3 was absolutely insane. It's probably the most hyped I've been for a game was Diablo 3. And when it first came out, I played that game for like 100 hours plus. But it was actually not that great at launch. Diablo 3 was actually a pretty disappointing game at launch, unfortunately, and it suffered from a lot of issues. But they have actually gone a long way in terms of like fixing that game. And in fact, Diablo 3 is a legitimately amazing game now. They've really fixed a lot, like so many different things I couldn't possibly go into. It would take forever to explain, but like the PC version and the console versions apparently are like absolutely fantastic. And I've put a lot of time in Diablo 3. It's getting up there with like the amount of hours I've put into it. I'm still playing it now, actually. So it's one of those series that as soon as like a new game or expansion is announced, I'm going to be hyped for it. I don't think the stories have ever been that great in these games. I actually liked the story in the first Diablo quite a bit, but the second game and the third game, the stories are throwaway. But it's mainly that gameplay loop of just finding new loot and kind of building your character that I find just so gratifying. And I think the games have like a simplicity to them that you don't find too often with PC games. Like there's not too many skills you can have at once. Like it's never too complex. Which is probably why, like, I was so young playing Diablo 2. I was able to get into it so much because, at its core, it's actually a simple game and it's easy to get into. I think even if you're like a primarily like a console gamer, you could play Diablo 1, 2, or 3 nowadays and easily get into it. That's why a console version was so successful with Diablo 3. So, yeah, it's one of those series that there's not too many entries into the series, but each one is fantastic. Yeah, it's a nice surprise that Blizzard was able to actually make Diablo 3 a good game for eventually, and the expansion for Diablo 3 is great. I haven't played the expansion for Diablo 1. It was like I think it was like an unofficial expansion called Hellfire with like the monk class. I never got to play that. Maybe one of these days I'll try to get to play that. But yeah, Diablo is a fantastic series. I really enjoy it. At number 4 is the Chrono series. Maybe cheating a little bit here. It's one of the smallest series on the list, even including the honorable mentions. There's only 2 games in this series, which is a huge shame. That really sucks. Although, if Square was to do another Chrono game, it'd be quite hard to live up to Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross. Now, Chrono Trigger, we'll talk about Chrono Trigger first. One of my favorite RPGs of all time. I have some nostalgia towards it because I did play it during like the emulator days when I discovered emulators. I was like in grade 7, so I don't know how old I was, but I was pretty young when I played Chrono Trigger for the first time, and I didn't get very far. It wasn't years later till I actually finally beat the game. But the first like 5 to 10 hours or so are very nostalgic to me. But Chrono Trigger is kind of like a timeless game. I think it's one of those RPGs you can play now and still play now for the first time and still absolutely fall in love with it. It just gets almost everything right as far as like an RPG goes. A really great storyline, not the most complex storyline out there, but very enjoyable. This like great time traveling storyline, which usually I'm not crazy about time travel, but the way Chrono Trigger handles time travel is just absolutely like amazing. The battle system was like amazing and a huge leap forward for like RPG battle systems back when the game came out. Really fun. A really charming cast of characters. A great sense of humor. Great visuals. I love the look of Chrono Trigger. And of course, how can you not mention like the god tier soundtrack? That's just like every track on this game is amazing. Corridors of Time being my favorite song in any video game. It's just such a magical game. It's very highly replayable as well. The New Game Plus was like a pretty new thing back when this game came out as well. So you can just, I know people that are really obsessed with this game just play it over and over and over again. Like it's a really replayable game. I can definitely see myself coming back to it. So yeah, it's one of my favorite RPGs, and Chrono Cross I think is actually even better. Not by much. I love them almost equally, but Chrono Trigger, that game blew my mind. Like a far more complex story than Chrono Trigger, and I think that's mainly probably one of the reasons why people don't like it as much. Chrono Cross gets a lot of hate, but honestly, I think it's an amazing game. Like with Trigger, it also has an absolutely incredible soundtrack. The visuals are absolutely stunning. I love the battle system. Some people are mixed on it, but I really enjoyed the battle system in Chrono Cross. It was, it's. I think a lot of people were disappointed with it because it's not what you would think of in terms of like a follow up to Chrono Trigger, because it's not like a direct sequel with those same cast of characters or anything like that. So I don't know. I don't know exactly what people were expecting or what people exactly wanted from Chrono Cross. It pretty much, I think it pretty much had to be quite different from Trigger. So I don't know exactly what they would do if they were to do another Chrono game, but I would definitely be like day one. I'd be buying it right away, playing it right away, and hopefully enjoying it. So yeah, it's it's one of those series like yeah, there's only 2 games in the series, but both of them are honestly like some of the best RPGs I've ever played. So 2 for 2 really. So definitely yeah, a small series still, but definitely one of my favorites. And at number 3 is the Mega Man series, and I'm going to specifically choose the original Mega Man series, so Mega Man 1 through 10. I also actually really enjoy the Mega Man X series. I think that's a fantastic series. Although, actually, I played X5 fairly recently. I did not enjoy that game, even though I loved it back when I first played it. And X7 and X8, I think, are terrible games. X6, I have a soft spot for, even though I can understand why people hate that one. So, really, it's only like X to X4, so I'm definitely talking about the classic Mega Man series here. But Mega Man Legends, I think those games are actually really underrated as well. I'm not actually crazy about the Mega Man Zero games or the ZX games. Well, actually, I haven't really played the ZX games, but I don't imagine I would like those very much. But the original Mega Man series, for me, is where it's at. And it's, yeah, a very nostalgic series to me. This was my first video game series obsession, really. The original Mega Man, I think the 5th one is the first one I played. It was either that or I played one of my friend's copies of Mega Man 2 or 3, and immediately it just hooked me. I loved the Mario games, for instance, when I was a kid, but the Mega Man games is what I kept coming back to these games. I was so obsessed with them where I would rent them constantly, like I would always rent different games in the series, and I never got sick of them. A lot of people would play, for instance, Mega Man 1 through 3, and then 4 came out, and I feel like a lot of people were kind of sick of Mega Man at that point. And a lot of people don't really like Mega Man 4, 5, and 6 all that much because they felt like the series was kind of, like, it was feeling like more of the same. But for me, I loved it. And I still, like, will eat up anything Mega Man. Where, like, the 9th game came out, and I loved that game. That was, like, this amazing throwback to the classic Mega Man games. And that was such a massive game for me. Like, I was so excited for that game. I was so happy when they announced it. And the fact that it actually turned out to be an amazing game was excellent. And then they announced 10, and I saw the same kind of people be like, well, 9 was great, but I'm not in the mood for another Mega Man game like that. And I loved 10. Was it more of the same? Yes, but that classic Mega Man gameplay I just love so much. I think the level designs have, like, in the series are remarkably consistent. I think the level designs are always really interesting. There's always some really neat gimmicks. Obviously, the games are known for, like, their high level of challenge. I think they're a little overrated as far as difficulty goes. Now, maybe this is because I've played them so much when I was a kid, and I still play them quite a bit now that I've gotten good at them. But, like, I think when you compare the Mega Man games to a lot of other NES games, like other Nintendo games, like, they don't even hold a candle to some of the other stuff on that system. Like, I think the difficulty on these games is actually rather low compared to a lot of the stuff that was coming out at the same time. Not to say that they're easy games. They're definitely challenging, but challenging in a good way. I don't think they're ever unfair or annoying. The level of challenge is good. I always like to see kind of like what Robot Masters came up next. A lot of people are kind of annoyed by that, just how lame they got with the Robot Masters. But I don't know. I think it's kind of charming in a weird way. The music. How can you not mention the music? Like, if there's one thing that's, like, amazing about these games, still, like, even the weaker games, the music is always amazing in these games. Like, so many catchy songs. Obviously, Mega Man 2 has, like, one of the greatest soundtracks of all time for a lot of people. Although I think Mega Man 3 actually has a better soundtrack. But, like, there's so many good songs. I really, the music was like a huge thing for me too as a kid, where I was humming these songs like constantly. It was just, I've been playing these games pretty much my entire life, and I'm always going to love the series. I'm such a huge fan that, like, that Legacy Collection is coming out soon for the 3DS physically, and I'm actually going to probably get that, even though I can play a lot of these games on the emulator or whatever. And then there's, like, a special edition with, like, a golden Mega Man amiibo. Now, I've said countless times I just do not care about amiibo, but I gotta be honest, that is tempting. That special edition with that special Mega Man amiibo. If I was to get amiibo of any character, it would be Mega Man. So, and I know Mega Man 1 does exist, but the gold one is more For whatever reason, it's more tempting because it's so limited. That's the only way you can get it. But yeah, huge fan of this series. I think actually Mega Man 1 to 10, I like them all. Like, it's one of those series where every game I like, which I can't say about the X series or the other Mega Man series. Well, actually, Legends, I do like both Legends games, but even some of the weaker ones, like I think my least favorite is probably Mega Man 7 or 8, Mega Man 7 or 8, but I still enjoy those games. I still think they're good games. So yeah, definitely a huge fan of the Mega Man series, and it's always gonna be a special series for me. I'm always gonna love it, I think. At number 2 is the Legend of Zelda series, a huge series. I think a series that would make a lot of people's lists. And yeah, it's a timeless series for me. Now, not to say that the series is perfect, that every game is fantastic. It's actually, I feel like the series has gotten worse these days. Ever since like the move to like 3D games. Although Link Between Worlds, that game was amazing. I loved that game. Most of the 2D Zelda games I really like. But no, there's some Zelda games I just flat out hate, actually. And it hurts to say that as a fan of the series. Like, I buy every Zelda game that comes out, every single one. I think the last one I didn't buy though, Triforce Heroes or whatever. Four Swords was one of the Zelda games I did hate. The multiplayer focus was just not for me. And that 3DS one, Triforce Heroes, like that game looks just terrible. Like that's like the first Zelda game I haven't bought in day one in a long time. But yeah, it's a series I started with when I was a kid. I didn't start with The Legend of Zelda, though, on the NES. I started with A Link to the Past. I rented it, but I didn't really get into it. That game was a little too difficult for me to understand. I could never figure out where to go. I was really bad at it. It wasn't until Ocarina of Time that I actually started to really love the series. And that game is like the most nostalgic game ever to me. Like, that game is just... Anytime I watch a scene from that game, or I play the game, or I listen to a song from that game, it just, like, memories just come rushing back, and I just get that, that nostalgic feeling, and it's almost, like, too much sometimes. It's, like, I always feel, like, in the mood to go back to that game. I think that's, like, a timeless classic, but ever since Ocarina of Time, I've been playing every single game. There's just something about that core formula. Now, I know one of the big complaints with the Zelda games is that that core formula hasn't changed enough, and I agree, they do need to change it up more, but I cannot deny how, like, fun that formula is, where, you go to a dungeon and you get a dungeon item that will help you kind of beat the boss of that dungeon, and then kind of help you solve puzzles in the overworld, and of course you have your overworld with the side quests, and then you have multiple dungeons, each with their own theme. There's something about that formula that just, I don't know, man, I just can't get sick of it. But I know it is a common complaint. I can understand that. And unfortunately, I feel like they haven't quite figured out how to really step up their game with the Zelda series. Skyward Sword, I liked Skyward Sword, but that game definitely had some issues. I have a Legend of Zelda series review. I'm going to be brief here with the discussion on Zelda, but if you want to hear my thoughts on every game in the series, I have a video, multiple videos up talking about every single game in the series, because, yeah, I've played every single one, and I love most of them, but Skyward Sword, it definitely has its flaws, but I still enjoyed it. Same with Twilight Princess. I know we're getting an HD remake of that. That game, I thought it had a bunch of issues as well. I thought it was still a good game, though. But then you have stuff like Wind Waker, Majora's Mask, and Ocarina of Time. I think all three of those games are absolutely incredible. Of course, Link to the Past is amazing. Link's Awakening, I absolutely love. The Oracle games, I think, are really underrated. The Minish Cap is also really underrated. Of course, Link Between Worlds is fantastic. Like, so many great games in this series. And I think the 2D games and 3D games are both really interesting. Some people like one type like some people like 2D more than 3D, 3D more than 2D. For me, I love them both. I don't even think I don't think I can even choose one, really, but I do have to say, though, like, the storylines are never that great in these games for whatever reason. It's really the gameplay that is why I keep coming back to these games. And then, of course, nostalgia has a big role there, but the Majora's Mask has an amazing storyline, though. That's like the one Zelda game that, to me. But like I said before, there are some Zelda games, like, as a fan, like the DS Zelda games, like, I've talked about this before, but those games were crushing disappointments to me. As such a huge fan of the series, those games, like, it's seriously, like, those games fucking suck. Like, they are terrible. at least in my opinion. So, even though I'm a huge fan of the series, it's ranked 3. Not every game is a winner in my book, but some people can see no wrong with the series. But there's been some clunkers. But I mean, every Zelda game that comes out, I'm going to get it day one. This one on the Wii U looks absolutely gorgeous, and I'm hoping it's good. I'm hoping they do a really great 3D Zelda game again. Because honestly, in my opinion, it's been since Wind Waker. So yeah, it's at number 3. It would be higher probably if the series was more consistent, but I gotta say it is a series that I have a lot of nostalgia for, and it's just I will always enjoy it. I think for sure. And at number 1, no surprise here if you've been following my channel at all, the Souls series. And yeah, if before this series came out, or rather, actually, when Demon Souls was out and Dark Souls was coming out, if someone told me that this series would become my new favorite series over The Legend of Zelda, I would call you crazy. It was so out of the blue for me. Dark Souls just came out and blew my mind, and then I went on to Demon Souls, and then Dark Souls 2 came out, and the excitement for that was crazy. Then we had Bloodborne, which was another fantastic game, and this series is just... I just want it to keep going. Now, I realize that we're almost at the point where we're getting like yearly installments, and I realize it's not like the typical game like, say, Assassin's Creed, where it's like the exact same team working on it and they're rushed out the door. But it's weird. I think a lot of people are probably feeling fatigue now with Dark Souls 3 just around the corner, actually. But for me, like, I could play these games like constantly. Like, I would be a-okay with a yearly installment as long as they had separate teams on each game. If they were doing like the Assassin's Creed thing, then probably not, because then I would hate to see this series decline in quality. And in fact, I think Miyazaki actually said in an interview that Dark Souls 3 is going to be the last Souls game, and he wants to work on something else, something new, which I'm very interested to see what he does next, because he's like now like one of my favorite game directors like of all time. But this series, like, there's so much I love about this series. It's what I look for in games, like this series has it. One of my favorite things about video games is just getting lost in a world and just exploring a world and being rewarded for my exploration and my curiosity. I'm the type of gamer that, when I play through games, I go through them quite slowly and just kind of like see everything there is to offer. I usually don't like 100% complete games because that I think can be a little tedious, but I don't rush my games. I always go in like every direction and make sure like, I'm one of those gamers where like there's like the primary path, or that's going to lead you to your objective. You know that for sure. But there's like all these other ways you could be going. Some players might just go straight for that goal, where I'm the type of player to go in every other direction first, and then finally tackle that primary objective. And the Souls games reward that mindset so well. And then of course of the series, it's really challenging too. So it's like got that challenging sense of exploration where it's not a cakewalk while you're exploring these deadly areas. The RPG elements, the role-playing games are like that's my favorite genre, and I think these games are amazing role-playing games because like the build variety is insane with the Souls games. Bloodborne not so much, but there's just so many different ways you can be playing these games, and every single way is viable. Every single way is fun. There's countless weapons to experiment with. Every time I play these games, it's a new experience for me. Every playthrough I make, and I have to mention like how replayable these games are. Most games I don't replay them. I really don't. Even games I really enjoy, I just find that when I play a game for a second time, it never quite reaches the level that it was for like the first time you played it. Some of the Zelda games I've replayed, so I think they hold up. But I mean, I gotta say, a lot of games, I don't ever feel the need or want to replay them really. But the Souls games, every time I replay them, they're still just as fun as they were the first time. Some of the mystery is gone for sure, but they're still really enjoyable. The combat is very tactical. Bloodborne it was much faster, but I like the kind of slow, methodical combat the Souls games have. But I also really appreciated the change in pace with Bloodborne. And Bloodborne, some people might not consider that a Souls game, but I think it's similar enough that I'll lump it in there as well with the series, because I really enjoy Bloodborne too. So Yeah, you know, have those RPG elements. You have like just how innovative this series was with like the messages and like the online where you have invaders, and of course you can do co-op with phantoms. I love how like unintrusive it is. You don't have people like, you know, with headsets calling you an idiot and all this shit. Like it's like there's a PvP aspect to it, but it's not competitive in the way like first person shooters are, or something like Counter Strike or Smash Brothers or fighting games. I don't get into competitive games like that, but with Dark Souls, I don't mind it so much. PvP, when you're not actually talking to each other and you're just one on one like this crazy fight, there's something appealing about that. And I just like how the co-op works too, where you're not. I mean, it's fun playing with friends, you know, and talking to them. And I think the online does need to be improved in these games. Dark Souls 2, I think, is at the best it's been with the online. But Bloodborne was a huge step back in that regard. But yeah, just how the games handle online, I think, is great. But I've heard this said before, but I think it's kind of it's good. I like it. I like this way to describe the Souls games as far as like role playing games. Like it's kind of some review said this, but it was like it's kind of like role playing at its roots. The games kind of remind me a little of Dungeons and Dragons, I guess. They're a bit. I'm pretty sure they're inspired by that, but there's just the role playing elements. I think are just super in depth, and I just find that the whole appealing. Like the souls aspect to them. You know, when you lose your souls when you die, I think that's great. There's all sorts of different things I can be saying about this series, but I do want to keep this video short. But it's basically everything I look for in a video game. Everything, like the reason I play video games. Like I mean, the Souls games have it, man. Like I don't know. It's weird. It's like the game I never knew like I really wanted before like I played Dark Souls. Because you know when I first saw Demon Souls, I was like, you know, that looks like a cool game. It's getting great reviews. Apparently, it's super difficult. I don't know if I'll like it that much. I certainly did not expect this series to be like my favorite my favorite series in gaming. I forgot to even mention like the level design. Like the level design and art direction in these games is this is like incredible stuff. Like industry, the best in the industry. I think From Software is the best in the industry when it comes to actual level design and environment design. Like it's absolutely amazing. Some of the environments you'll see in this game and in these games, gorgeous games too. I think, on a technical level, they're not amazing, but on an artistic level, I think they're just impeccable. But man, I could just go on and on and on about this series. I love it so much, man. Unless the series just completely goes downhill, which I don't think so. I don't think Miyazaki would let that happen. But yeah, definitely my favorite series. Will it ever be topped? I don't know, man. It's tough. Some game has to come along that just completely blows my mind, and then it has to get like multiple sequels. I was talking about Undertale recently, and that's one of my favorite games in a long time. But we're not going to see a sequel to that, so it can't really be like my favorite series. But talking about favorite series in games, Soul series, definite number one, and I don't see that changing for a long time. And I'm very excited for Dark Souls 3. Everything they've shown on that game, like that has the chance of being my favorite game in the series, which is crazy because Dark Souls is like my favorite game of all time. So Dark Souls 3 being better than Dark Souls, like that's crazy to even think about. But we'll see, I guess. But Soul series, definite number one. Okay, now let's do honorable mentions. This video is actually much longer than I thought it would be, but the Tales series, one of my favorite RPG series. I have to admit, some of the games I'm not crazy about. Tales of Legendia is okay. Grace's F, I was actually not a fan of that game. I know a lot of people love Grace's F. I think that game is, honestly, I don't think it's very good. I think most of the games are quite good, and the battle system in those games is just like so great. The cast of characters in those games are always great. It's like comfort food JRPG. I've heard that term thrown around for the Tales series, and I would agree with that. It's a really enjoyable series, but I don't think as far as RPGs, like JRPGs, it's one of the better series, I think, but not quite enough to make the top 5, I don't think. The Chrono series, I think I prefer, definitely, even though it's only 2 games. But the Tales series is still fairly consistent, though. I'm also not a fan of the really old Tales games either, Fantasia and Destiny. Final Fantasy, there's still some games I need to play. That's why this isn't an honorable mention. But most of the Final Fantasy games I've played, I've really loved. Like Final Fantasy 9, 8, and 7 in particular. The PS1 trilogy I really enjoyed. Final Fantasy 4 and 6 were also amazing as well, though. 13 is probably my least favorite, but even then I thought 13 was okay. Like, I didn't hate it. So I still need to play Final Fantasy 12 and the Tactics games, or Final Fantasy Tactics rather. So Final Fantasy has a chance, I think, of cracking the top 5 once I play through all of them, because I think that series actually holds up quite well. Now, if you're not crazy about JRPGs or RPGs in general, probably not. But I still really have enjoyed going through the Final Fantasy series. The Mario series, that's a big one. And yeah, I love the old school Mario games. Mario 1, I absolutely love. That was the first video game I ever played. Although I don't like it as much as I did when I was a kid. But Mario 3, I think, is an absolutely amazing game. Super Mario World is incredible. Mario 64, I'm actually not crazy about Mario 64. I didn't play it when it came out. I don't have nostalgia for it. I've played it, like, I think 3 or 4 times, and I can't get into that game. I don't know. I think that game is really dated as far as, like, 3D platformers go, because I played Banjo-Kazooie, and I think that game holds up way better and does everything Mario 64 does, but it does it better. Like, I don't know, like, I think Mario 64 was honestly outclassed, like, only a few years later by Banjo-Kazooie. Not a popular opinion, I know, but I don't know. I don't like Mario 64 that much. I really don't. Maybe I'll give it one more shot at some point, but what else is there? Mario Sunshine I've actually never played. I still need to play that. The Galaxy games are great, of course. I really like 3D Land and 3D World. I think those games are really underrated. They're actually some of my favorite Mario games. But one of the reasons why I didn't quite make the list is the new Super Mario Brothers series. The new Super Mario Brothers, New Super Mario Brothers U, DS. I hate those games. I think those games are, like, boring. Like, I like, those games put me to sleep. Like, I don't know what it is with those games. I just think, like, compared to other Mario games, the level design is just, like, it's just generic. Like, well, I don't know if generic's quite the right word, but there's no... I don't know, the level designs are just so boring. Those games are just so lifeless. The soundtracks are garbage in them. Like, I don't know, I really don't like that whole series of Mario games. It looks like they've stopped doing them for now. Thank God, but, like, I don't know, those games I just do not like. So yeah, the Mario series, definitely some games I don't like, but overall I think that series is still of high quality. The Devil May Cry series, I'm not super crazy about character action games. My favorite is still the original Ninja Gaiden. Not the Xbox one, I mean, which I'm actually planning to play through that game again for the first time since, like, 2004 next year. So we'll see how that game holds up. But the Devil May Cry series I've really enjoyed, at least the ones I've played, which are Devil May Cry 1, 3, I forgot about 2. 2 isn't very good. And 4. 4 I really like. It actually probably is my favorite in the series. I haven't played the reboot. I've heard that game's gotten better with, like, that, like, redone version of it. So I'll have to go back and try that one. But I'm planning on doing, like, a Devil May Cry series review at some point. So I'm going to try to play that reboot probably sometime next year. But I really do enjoy the Devil May Cry series. Grand Theft Auto games. They get a lot of hate. I know a lot of people aren't too big on them. I like them. I don't like the original ones, like the top-down ones. I don't like those very much. But starting from Grand Theft Auto 3, I loved that back in the day, and I've loved everyone since. Although 3 and Vice City, I think, are actually, like, too difficult. Like, those games are very hard. But San Andreas is when the series actually started to get, like... the missions started to get more... I don't know. Some of the missions in Grand Theft Auto 3 and Vice City, I think, were just too ridiculous. Like, really hard and with, like, no checkpoints. So they were kind of annoying. This is a little, not really a rant, but a little aside. But Grand Theft Auto 3, I remember one mission. I could never beat this mission. Like, it was so damn difficult. I've actually never beaten Grand Theft Auto 3, even though I really enjoyed when I played it. There was a mission in that game where you had to, like, deliver, like, I want to say it was like something like 24 cars to some guy's garage in a time limit. And it was ridiculous. It was so difficult. I could never beat it. I want to know if that mission's actually not that bad, and I was just terrible as a kid. But I've always wanted to try going back to Grand Theft Auto 3. But Vice City is still my favorite. The missions tend to get a little too difficult for me, but, like, the soundtrack in that game and the atmosphere and the story, like the Goodfellas inspired kind of storyline there, I thought was just amazing. San Andreas is also really good. And Grand Theft Auto 4 gets a lot of shit. I enjoyed it. I really liked it at the time. And then Grand Theft Auto 5, I thought was an excellent game as well. So yeah, I really like the Grand Theft Auto series. Shin Megami Tensei / Persona. I still need to play more games in this series, but this is another series that has a good shot of making it. Perhaps even over the Final Fantasy series, because like seriously, Persona 3 and 4 are like some of my favorite games of all time. Like I absolutely love those games. Shin Megami Tensei 4 I absolutely loved as well. But I still need to play Nocturne, the Digital Devil Saga games, and Persona 1 and 2, so an honorable mention for now for the SMT series. Silent Hill. Now, if only Silent Hill 1 through 4 existed and like all those Western developed Silent Hill games didn't exist, this series would have a good shot of making the top 5, or at least a top 10. But, though, yeah, we have those Western Silent Hill games, which are just, for the most part, absolute garbage. It's a shame, because like those Team Silent developed Silent Hill games, I absolutely love. So I have a series review on that, on the Silent Hill games, if you want to check that out. And then the last honorable mention here is the Mass Effect trilogy. The original Mass Effect is still my favorite of the three. That game was like a pure RPG. Yeah, it had clunky shooting and really clunky like UI and inventory management, but I fucking loved it. I didn't care. And then Mass Effect 2 came, and it was like, yeah, it was, it felt like a shooter, but all the RPG elements were dumbed down, and I don't know, that really bothered me. But overall, the trilogy as a whole, I think the storytelling is excellent. There's fantastic lore, and the Commander Shepard, it was just, seeing his journey from the beginning to the end was just really cool, and all the decisions you would make, like carrying over into each game. Each game kind of got progressively worse. And the writing actually got worse, I feel, as you went on. But even the third game, that game got a lot of shit for like the endings and stuff. But I don't know, I thought it was fine. But I'd like to actually go through that trilogy in one go and not have it like segmented. Because I played Mass Effect 1, then I waited a few years for 2, then waited a few years for 3. I think it would be cool to play those 3 just in one shot. But I had a great time with that trilogy, so it's definitely one of my favorite series. And we'll see with this new one, Andromeda, I think it's called, what it has to offer. I'm not holding extremely high hopes because I feel like BioWare has just gotten like worse and worse these days. Even though I did like Dragon Age Inquisition, I do feel like they're just not what they used to be. But ever since EA bought them out, honestly, it feels like their games have been rushed, like Mass Effect 2 even. But whatever, that's a tangent. But yeah, those are the honorable mentions. But what are some of your guys' favorite series in gaming? What would your top 5 or top 10 be? Yeah, that's about it. Definitely check out Sporadic Spacebar's list and his videos. I'll leave a link into the description to his video and his channel. So yeah, that's it, guys. I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.